Thank you for waiting for me. It's been quite a day, yeah? I want to first start by thanking the organizers. Can we just honor all of those women and men who were part of putting together this day? As well as TED. You know, there are some 110 cities currently engaged in the conversation of women. And I can't help but to think of all those women that are in the Middle East right now, all of those that are in Africa right now, all of those in Asia. Can you guys start to get the power? Europe, down under, and of course, across this country. So I want to acknowledge TED for having the vision of bringing women together globally. And then the women you've heard from. And it's just awe-inspiring. The honor and the privilege to share this stage and this moment and this day with them. So thank you all for inspiring each and every one of us. So you heard I'm an attorney. It was actually by accident. I didn't go to law school to become an attorney. I actually went to law school to learn the law. Shocking. But here's the reason why. My uncle had been taken political prisoner in Iran, the country that I was born in. And I wanted to learn the law so that I could support human beings like him. You understand what I mean? So it wasn't about the practice. It was more about learning the structures to support human beings. See, there are certain people in the world who make sure that dolphins exist, right? And that the environment is untouched, and that children are not abused. And that's what they give their lives to. How I'm made up is that I just love human beings. And it affects me every time I say it. Now, they piss me off, and I don't understand them, and they really, really can hurt. You know what I mean? But I just can't help it. I love them. I love you all. So what I'm about to share, I've only shared one other time publicly. So this is the second time. I feel a little, bare up here. But you guys have given us your attention so brilliantly all day, so I know that you're going to give me that same level of care and tenderness when you hear this. When I wake up in the morning, every new thought I have or any old thoughts I have, every action that I choose to take or not to take arises from my personal mission statement. You ready? I live by a possibility. The possibility that I live by is the possibility of the realization of peace in my lifetime. I'm going to let you just sit with that for a minute. A bit audacious. Even in the backdrop of everything that we're seeing in the Middle East, in the country of my birth, in North Africa, here in the United States, how is that possible? So I said I went to law school, and I said that I didn't have any intentions of practicing law. In fact, I remember my first semester sitting next to Karen Waters in my contracts class. Any lawyers in here? Okay. And I remember just slipping down in my chair and leaning over to Karen and saying, listen, if you ever catch me practicing law, I've done something wrong in my life. That's just how I related to practicing law. So I started teaching the Constitution after I graduated from law school. And why the Constitution? Because it's the bedrock of any civil society. And ours is a pretty good one. when we choose to abide by it. 3 years later, this event took place. You all may have heard of it. It was on the 11th day of September 2001. I was teaching the Constitution of this land at the time. And a former student of mine contacted me late at night and said a friend of his was going to be questioned by the FBI for a third time. And they didn't know what to do. I, having been born in Iran, and this young man, having been born in the Middle East, well, this student thought it was a good match. What the student didn't know is that I had never used my bar card. Never practiced law. Taught it. What do they say? Those who practice and those who teach. Well, I had a conversation with the young man the next day, and I said, listen, I'm going to find a lawyer for you. I'm not that. And he said, I don't think we have enough time. Well, I called all of those groups that one does who work on civil liberties issues, and they said, when you go and find out, let us know. Because you see, it was right after 9/11. And we didn't, at this side of the coast, have the same kind of experiences they had on that side of the coast. Meaning, we hadn't had the interrogations yet. So this was one of the first ones. So I went, made cards from Kinko's the night prior. My last name is Akhlaghi, and I wrote that on the card and put on and associates, because that's what I had seen people do before. The only good news is that the FBI didn't know what I didn't know, and that actually helped. So off I went to Folsom, California, north of Sacramento. But I didn't just go in there with that set of fresh, new Kinko's cards. I went in there with my judgments. I went in there with my anger. I went in there with my prejudice, bounty. I studied international relations, political science. I was no dummy. I knew what the FBI had done in the past. And that's what I went in there with. And at the end of the FBI interrogation, I looked at my client and I said, good, we did it. But the look on his face was pale. I said, are you okay? And his response was, did I make a mistake by having you be here? And he did. That person. See, if we're going to realize peace in our lifetime, there's a collective desire. Is there not on the planet? Is there not on the planet? If we're going to realize peace in our lifetime, where does it begin? Does it begin out there, or does it begin right here? Do we start to look at those things that divide us? Do we start to take into consideration those areas that keep us separate from another, and from whom? Another human being. Where is peace? Is it out on the streets in Oakland? Is it out on the streets in New York? Is it out on the streets of Libya and Egypt? Or is it in our homes? Or is it where you're seated? Maybe. So that was 2001. Fast forward it with me. My organization, so I'm the founder of 2 human rights organizations, was asked in 2005 and 2006 to work with the United Nations, the women's branch, UNIFEM. And we were asked to go to Amman, Jordan, the capital of Jordan, and to work with the Iraqi female parliamentarians. A lot there, huh? We got it? So we did. They brought these phenomenal women and met us there. And they had come to learn about the Constitution, their interim Constitution. And what we were there to do, myself and my staff members, was to train them through the process. And one woman said, you know, for us to be here, and we wouldn't be anywhere else but here, because this is the first step for our democracy. This is the first step for our human dignity. This is the first step for our freedom. But the cost of that, you see, this is the way that they would make their way out of the country, officials. They would drive to the Baghdad airport, and there would be snipers on both sides. If they made that passage, then they would board the plane, and this is the UN plane to bring them out of the country, and in this instance, like I said, into Amman, Jordan. But in the process, what they also knew is that the dossier for the flights had already been sold, and they had already been sold to the opposition groups. So they knew who was coming. And prior to the flight, what these human beings would do, what these commitments to democracy would do, what these public servants would do, is sleep in different people's homes, night by night by night, because they were looking for them to make a point. They were looking to assassinate them. So this lady said, this parliamentarian said, the cost and the price of my being here for democracy for my people were her best friend, the child of her brother, for her to be there. Peace in the face of that? What am I talking about? Is it possible in the face of that? Yes, it is, because here's the kind of peace I'm talking about. The kind of peace I'm talking about, please listen, the kind of peace I'm talking about is the kind of peace that Mandela sat in a detention facility for nearly 3 decades. The kind of peace that I'm talking about is the kind of peace that Martin Luther King and Gandhi gave their lives for, with compassion, unconditional love, and nonviolence. The kind of peace that I'm talking about is the kind of peace that we all saw this depicted. The young man before the tank with nothing more than 2 grocery bags, before that very tank that was about to go to a square called Tiananmen. The kind of peace I'm talking about is the kind of peace that you see today, young and old, country after country after country, with nothing more than a phone to take photographs of what's happening to them. That's the kind of peace I'm talking about. Can you hear me? Is it possible? I've given my life to it with honor. It's the kind of possibility that Mandela said was going to be for South Africa, even though there was no evidence of it. You got what I'm saying? Now think about what I'm saying and listen to your internal voice. How many of you are saying, yeah, nice, if only so-and-so didn't exist, or that government wasn't in power, or if. I'm saying in the face of all of that, even in the face of all of that, we have seen it. We've seen it repeatedly. I know it. I believe in it. I witness it daily in my work. Won't you join me? Thank you. Thank you.